All right, this is a presentation for you guys for this project. You've seen the assignment sheet and click to get to this link here. This is sort of like an artist of the week. Well, there's two parts to it. This first part is talking about art in general that has crisis as its theme, and I'm going to look at art over the last 100 years. And this is kind of making a connection to our current coronavirus epidemic that we're going through right now. So we'll watch this, watch the next one, answer the questions through the thing, and then this is actually going to introduce you to the assignment that I'm going to have you do. We'll get there. So here's what we're doing to do. I'm going to just show you some pieces of artwork. This is from about 110 years ago. Well, yeah, about 105 years ago, during World War One. World War One at the time was not called World War One. It was just called the Great War or the World War because so many countries were involved in it. And here are soldiers marching off. And this is done in a style called Cubism. You can see kind of how the space, go back here, the space is kind of divided up with these little blocky type lines, and there's like almost like cube type shapes in here. That's where Cubism comes from. It was a style that was invented by Pablo Picasso. I'll show you a Picasso Cubism in a little bit here. But this one's kind of showing, it's interesting because it kind of fractures the space as if the space almost looks like it was in broken glass or something. And it kind of reflects the fractured of the world right during war as these glum faces are going off into battle. Here's another piece from World War One. You know, when World War One, it was not called World War One at the time because it was called the Great War and it was called the World War, but they didn't expect to have World War Two, so it was called the World War at the time, and it was using weapons and munitions that we haven't had before. So there are huge explosions and bombs, and you can see this one's called Explosion, and the result of this with the bright red fiery explosion with the smoke, and then you can kind of make out some faces and figures down below here, and just showing the violence of the crisis of war. Maybe you saw that movie 1917. If you haven't seen it, I suggest seeing it. Really good movie, artistically done as if it was done with one continuous shot. It looks like the movie was almost in real time, and it shows this crisis. The story is it's the crisis of this messenger trying to get this messenger across to a general in order to save lives. So it's kind of an interesting story. You can see the stress on his face there. When World War One ended, a movement started in art that was kind of a reflection of people's views at the time. And the movement was called Dada. It started in Europe and it came a little bit to the United States, but mostly in Europe after World War One. People kind of just thought the world had gone crazy. So the art is kind of a reflection to that. A lot of satirical and nonsensical in nature. So you have this montage, and this is kind of a collage of just images. You have this face with things in the mouth and things attached to the head, and this hat made out of these numbers and things, and actual words. And this is probably an assembly of a variety of like newspaper clippings and magazine clippings made a collage to create a new image. And the collage at this time was a relatively new form of art. Nobody had done collage until sort of the Dada time. Here's another one by Hannah Hawk. The title of this one is interesting. Cut with the kitchen knife through the first epoch of the Weimar beer belly culture. And it's making a criticism of the way the German government was established after World War One. It wasn't a very stable government, and it led to Hitler's rise in the beginning of World War II. And the whole composition is just, there's really no focal point. There's lots going on. You have one big figure here you see with something over his eye and some strange creature out of his head. You look carefully here. This is really, really odd. You see the word Dada a couple of times. Dada here and Dada there and Dada there. So they're incorporating the words. But mostly it's a mixture of sort of machine part like gears and ball bearings and wheels and things, and then intermittent people and animals in between. So making kind of a statement of just like the world's kind of gone crazy in this Dada type image. Dadaism could also be like this type of a collage where you're cutting out these faces, these eyes, and this almost looks like a floral bouquet. And so it's a kind of a strange idea. And then these are photo montages that would not be made by just cutting out paper, but actually manipulating photographs in the dark room. So you'd put two negatives together, a picture of a Zeppelin with a picture of a soldier, and you get these cylinders working into this woman's face and these eyes and these hands here, and with the building and the shadows, So it's kind of like creating this almost a surreal type word. We'll get to that. And look, there's printed images of words from like a magazine to replace her eyes with the tears here. So this is kind of Dada-like, and that whole idea that the world has kind of gone nuts, and we can kind of react to that today with the coronavirus and all the changes we've gone through our life. So that's one of the reasons I'm showing you these art pieces that have crisis. This one's called About That. It's a poetry book cover created by this Alexander Ronchenko. And again, we have some weird combinations. You have like a body with of a person with like a wolf head on top, and that's right in front of this woman who's staring out at you. This is sort of the focal point. You have a gun kind of pointing towards her. And the composition is everything sort of like is pointed towards her, this body here, and this tank is leading you to here, and it all comes back to her eyes. And again, we have a combination of animals juxtapositioned with humans in strange composition. Here's a Dadaist poem. This is actually made by just taking a paragraph from a book and then removing a bunch of words by blacking them out. You can see there's like black marker covering these up. And you get out the unwanted words, and it creates a poem, and it's kind of a strange poem. The void is the ultimate mystic doorway. It allows you to disappear into non-existence against the backdrop of eternity. So kind of a dire message there. It's kind of strange. Surrealism kind of came out of Dadaism, and it's a little more specific type of a direction. Surrealism, here's one definition. It was a movement in the art in the 20th century with art and literature. But one definition of surrealism is having real things placed in unreal situations. And often the images come from, or like dream-like images or something from the unconscious. And in Salvador Dali's persistence of memory here, he takes the idea of what if a hard, rigid clock was really soft. It became a soft material. You still have some of the metal qualities, and it's exquisitely painted to make them look like actual clocks, but they're draped over a branch, over the edge of this counter, and over this strange anamorphic figure with this big eyelash, and it's hard to even tell what this thing is. And it's all in a weird kind of desolate landscape where you have this really, really exquisitely painted coastline and cliffs, and everything is painted super realistically, but it's an unreal situation. It's kind of dreamlike. Here's some other surrealism. Rene Magritte was a surrealist. So you take the idea of people kissing. It's kind of a normal scene, but you put cloaks over their heads and you paint it in a real kind of realistic way. And why would they be wearing these? And this is almost sort of like a strange nightmare type dream-like thing. Pablo Picasso is in reaction to the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, painted this huge painting. I think it's like 20 feet across, called Guernica. That's the name of the town where there was this fire bombing during the Civil War in Spain. And this light represents the light of the bomb exploding, and you have these animals showing, extreme emotion in their crisis, and then you have the people doing the same, like a ghostly head coming in here, and distorted bodies, and this poor woman here is crying out because her baby had died, and this person looks like he's like kind of getting trampled by the horse here, in the chaos of the scene. So interesting way of doing this. This is sort of Pablo Picasso's Cubist style in the way that the space is kind of broken up in different planes and almost cartoon type characters here. Here's another surrealistic not painting, but a photo montage. So you have realistic photos of a face and many hands, and the hands look like they're emerging out of this whole series of rocks, and the rocks almost look like they're waves or something. And it's called dreams, and that's the idea of surrealism is like it's things from our unconscious. Here's another Salvador Dali. Geopoliticus child watching the birth of a new man. And this was right towards the end of World War II, and the United States came into the war and was helping to kind of save Europe. And you can see this person in here represents America. You can see that on a map of the world, he's kind of coming out of North America here. United States is saving the world. They're being birthed. This is sort of the birth of their selves as superpower. This person here is kind of pointing towards him as he's coming out of this egg type world. And there's blood here, of course, from the war, and his hand is kind of pressed right on top of Europe to kind of like the United States is going to kind of dominate the world after this. Here's a piece more contemporary. And when I say contemporary, I mean sort of in your lifetime or within the last 20, 25 years. This is a collage done since September 11th, 2001. And this type of collage is okay. It's just a creation of different images from 9/11, and you see this one has a montage here of the Statue of Liberty on top, and you have some of these see-through things here. And when you do your collage, you can do something like this, where you can, let's go back, where you can have a collection of images like this. But there's more interesting ways. This kind of lacks a sense of unity. It seems like it's just a bunch of separate pictures. This seems to have a little more unity, where you have the large George Bush character looking down as the Twin Towers are getting hit and crashing and burning. And then it has the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building here. Again, another burning building here, standing very, very strong here. And then we have some firefighters and people in crisis here. So this crisis artist is talking about a traumatic event in U.S. history when the World Trade Centers were hit by airplanes. Here's another September 11th collage, and it's done in a little different way. You can see just one building looking down up it here. There's a smaller building next to it. But as the airplane hit, and then there looks like there's some painted images around here. And this collage is filled with a bunch of little newspaper clippings with the different words like attack and no, who knew what, and will this continue? We must go on, and we're on the edge. And people were saving lives, and we're doomed in their suspicion. So all the kind of the words that were in the headlines, it's kind of a reflection of the times. And amongst there is American flags in here, and this one's a little on the darker side, but it has a good sense of composition with all this framing technique going around this main image in the center here. This one here kind of baffled me. I found this, it's not really a September 11th, even though I do see Osama bin Laden in here, the mastermind behind September 11th. But you have a whole bunch of images from the past and more contemporary. You got Barack Obama here, and you have Elvis and Abraham Lincoln. It's George Washington here. And then there's clocks here. So it's making a kind of a message about leaders over the course of time. You get this woman holding a machine gun here towards the back of the head of Osama bin Laden. So some interesting images here. I'm not sure I understand this one completely, but it's intriguing enough to me to show you guys this one. And then we're going to stop this here. And I'm going to have you watch the next video here in a little bit, and we can